The conflict in Sudan marked its 100th day on Tuesday. The fighting has caused severe damage to infrastructure, including healthcare and educational facilities, as well as the economy. But what is more worrying is the number of children caught up in the conflict. UNICEF has reported that at least 435 children have been killed and over 2,000 injured in the conflict. More than 2,500 others face severe violations of their rights. That figure amounts to an average of more than one every hour in a country where 14 million youngsters need aid relief. Let's bring in Salim Oweis, the communication officer at UNICEF Regional Office for the Middle East and North Africa. He joins us live via Zoom from Amman. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Over 100 days into the conflict in Sudan, UNICEF is painting a dire picture for the children caught in the middle. What can you tell us about the latest UNICEF visit there?
Thank you. The picture is indeed dire for the children in Sudan. Over 100 days since the beginning of the conflict, as you said, Sudan is really faced with a catastrophic humanitarian crisis, which is really projected to worsen further if fighting does not immediately stop. As you mentioned, the numbers, these are only the numbers that were reported to UNICEF. They are not confirmed due to access issues, due to the security situation in the country, but real numbers are expected to be much more, unfortunately. Other reports were were given on abduction, sexual and gender-based violence against women and girls. These are on the rise, according to the reports. Also attacks on civilian infrastructure, hospitals, schools, those infrastructures that children really depend on for their well-being. So unless fight stops, this is gonna be even a worse problem. Children should be protected at all times, and this is a call to the parties of the conflict and all those who have influence over them to prioritize children, their rights, and their safety and security.
Well, indeed, heartbreaking reports all across the board. Salim, it is a situation in which even aid workers are not safe. So who is left to protect the children, both those who are still trapped in the conflict areas and those who are fleeing to displacement centers?
Unfortunately, that is true. Aid workers are not spared in this brutal violence. This should stop, and aid workers should be given guaranteed, safe, and unimpeded access to deliver aid and to reach children and families wherever they are, especially in the most hard-hit areas. UNICEF has not stopped its operation on the ground. We are there before the conflict and continue to be during. Unfortunately, if the situation continues like this and if access is not guaranteed, more children are going to be exposed to severe situations. For example, 690,000 children will be exposed to severe acute malnutrition. 1.7 million children will be 1.7 children under 1 will be at risk of missing critical vaccinations, and of course that means raising the risk of them getting diseases that would maybe be fatal to their lives. However, despite the challenges, UNICEF during the 100 days have been able to provide health supplies to 3 million children and women. Over 1.4 million people were reached with safe drinking water. To date, UNICEF delivered over 5,500 metric tons of life-saving supplies across Sudan, including in hotspots like Darfur, Kordofan, and Khartoum. Unfortunately, funding is minimal. Only 9% of UNICEF's ask is met. UNICEF urgently needs $400 million to sustain and scale up the response to this crisis.
All right, Salim, focusing still on the plight of the children. There are those children who make it out of the conflict zones on their own without their parents. what is being done, number one, for them, and number two, what are their most critical needs, including those who make it across the borders?
Yeah, so 1.7 million additional children have been forced to leave their homes in the past 100 days. Now they are on the move, either within Sudan or across the borders. Some of these are, as you said, on their own. These children, especially those who are unaccompanied or separated from their families, are really exposed to and vulnerable to really dire outcomes: hunger, disease, violence, exploitation. There's a lot that these children are going through, and that's where UNICEF, as mentioned, UNICEF is helping on the ground within Sudan, but also on the borders in those camps or gathering points, providing the life-saving services and supplies, but also, for example, as of the 11th of July, 324 unaccompanied and separated children were given either alternative care or reunified with their families. UNICEF has safe spaces across Sudan and in the camps receiving refugees and internally displaced people. These safe spaces provide psychosocial support, provide referral to the cases that needs a referral, and of course, efforts to reunify these children with their families.